On Wednesday, we celebrated Earth Day, a day that has been celebrated every year since 1970 on April 22nd. It's a day for raising awareness of human activity's negative aspect upon the Earth, and is a day for political action and civic participation as well. It's the culmination of an entire month of focus on the environment, and for people of faith, it has a special significance as a day of reverence for God's creating and sustaining work. Creation Justice Ministries has committed itself to its theme for 2020, the fierce urgency of now. We know we have 10 years to take action to avert the most catastrophic damage to the life-sustaining climate God has blessed us with and entrusted to our care.
So until very recently, most of the responses that we got were that we have to be realistic about our current political makeup in Congress and what is actually possible to pass, regardless of the ecological need that our world has.
This is Earth Month, and my guest is the Executive Director of Creation Justice Ministries, Shanta Reddy Alonso. Shanta is a tireless advocate among faith leaders in the U.S., and today she will reinforce just how fiercely urgent our collective action on behalf of the planet truly is. This show is going to be a good one. I'm your host, Reverend Stephen D. Martin. COVID-19 has caused many of us to slow down, but the climate crisis cannot wait. In 2018, the UN issued a report saying we only had 12 years to stop global warming and prevent irreversible damage to the planet. A report in The Guardian in 2018 said, "The world's leading climate scientists have warned there are only a dozen years for global warming to be kept at a maximum of 1.5 degrees Celsius, beyond which even a half a degree will significantly worsen the risks of drought, floods, extreme heat, and poverty for hundreds of millions of people." 2 years later, it would seem that politicians are not taking this deadline any more seriously. This past Wednesday, we celebrated Earth Day, and April is Earth Month. It is the perfect time to check in with Shanta, and I know you'll appreciate her incredible knowledge and insight. Let's listen in. Welcome to the podcast, Shanta. How are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, all things considered. You're located, the last time we talked, you were located right pretty much upstairs and down the hall, but now you're across the country. You made a big change. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, so my husband got an exciting new job with Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit organization that helps low-income communities access the benefits of solar power through workforce development and clean energy installations in low-income communities. And it was too good a job to pass up. So DC is home for me, but Southern California is home for him. And so we have moved to be closer to his family and close to his exciting new job. And we're adjusting to the new lifestyle. We're about 6 months in now.
And as the way a lot of things go, I'm sure this hasn't affected your continuing ongoing work with Creation Justice Ministries at all, has it?
Well, so Creation Justice Ministries, we're accustomed to being up on Capitol Hill, and we do still, my colleague Annika Harley is still on Capitol Hill, and we are fundraising and preparing ourselves to hire on a new person who will be spearheading our policy work that really does need to be done on Capitol Hill. But quite a bit of our work that has to do with liaising with our member communions, which are, overlapping with the National Council of Churches member communions, and some of our project work, and especially a lot of our Western public lands and endangered species work. It's actually pretty well suited to living out here. So we're a nimble organization, and we're making it work.
Well, and we're all having to be nimble these days, so I think you may have actually gotten a head start on the rest of us. We're now just maybe getting settled into what you've been settled into for quite some time.
I think that's right.
Well, I really, the reason we're talking is today's Earth Day, so I would like to say Happy Earth Day to you, and really show some gratitude for the work that you've done. You've done so much work over the years, keeping environmental justice in front of us, keeping it at the forefront in the faith community, and I really want to thank you for that. But I know that things are, I mean, we're in a very, very different situation today than any of us would have thought of. There's a YouTube video going around that I hope I can set this up properly. Maybe I'll link to it in the show notes. But it starts out with it's a young woman who's coming to herself to talk to herself 4 months ago. And she's trying to warn her 4 month ago self what was coming without giving away too much. And
I saw that.
Have you seen that one? And she says, well, we'll start with the good news. And she says, well, climate change has never looked better. Is there any kind of benefit that is going on? I'm just going to ask a dumb question. Is this situation that we're in helping us in any way?
So there are a lot of crazy things happening right now. But generally, this is not the way that we want to heal Earth and our communities through a global pandemic. So yes, the price of oil, the producers are now basically having to give it away because there's nobody able to store the oil. So oil production may need to come to a stop for a little while. The skies are much clearer. The air quality has gotten better. For the first time, people in Los Angeles are saying they're able to see out on the horizon for a generation. That's a city that's very accustomed to smog. We've all probably seen the images on social media of the dolphins playing in the Venice Canal, and the water quality is improving. But ultimately, a global shelter in place is not the way that we want to heal our ecological crisis, especially when it's coming at the cost of so many lives and livelihoods. So climate change, I would say that what we're learning about the connection between climate change and the pandemic is that we're getting a glimpse of what could happen if we change our ways and dramatically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. But more importantly, we're getting, because that won't be a lasting effect. More importantly, we're getting a glimpse of what is possible for public policymakers to do when they truly understand that we're having a global emergency. I can't tell you how many times we have taken religious leaders to talk with policymakers on Capitol Hill, and we talk about the climate crisis and the climate emergency, and it seems to fall on deaf ears, and people do not see it as an emergency. And people say, how in the world are we going to pay for the scale of things that you're saying we need, and is this really as much of an emergency as you say it is? And now we see that as the climate emergency, if the climate emergency really becomes clear, and we understand the need to flatten the curve of global climate change, the way we understand the need to flatten the curve of this pandemic, we may be able to see the scale of response that we need. I've just been floored by the bipartisan action that we've seen from policymakers to address this crisis.
I just to back up a little bit, I went out for a little while this morning and just got out, and it's a cold front has come through. It's blue skies, it's windy, it's brisk. You would expect it to be clear. There was something that was uncannily clear about it today. Noticeably different from what we have here in the metropolitan Washington area. And it was one of those kinds of situations where I didn't really realize how bad it was until I realized, oh wow, it's really nice today. And then, again, reading a news piece that said, well, that's because air quality is really a lot better everywhere because of this. And what I think I hear you saying is that one kind of a silver lining to this is that we might all be able to see now what is actually possible where we didn't think it was possible before.
I think that's exactly right. This is our glimpse into our cleaner air future that we're getting because we're all sheltering in place. It's not a sustainable way to achieve the clean air future, but it is a foretaste of what's to come if we all take the climate action we need.
Now, on the downside of things, we know that this temporary situation is not going to suddenly, just because it's better today, it's not going to solve it long term. We're also seeing other signs continuing. The Australian wildfires are not very far in our distant past. Miami right now is experiencing ridiculously high temperatures, oppressively high temperatures, and many of the and certainly members of my family have been affected by the tornadoes in Middle Tennessee, and so so many of the warning signs of severe climate change and rapid climate change, they're still there. They're still going. Am I correct?
That's correct. And in fact, this pandemic itself is another sign of ecological crisis. So for those who understand a little bit about how land conservation and biodiversity works, zoonotic diseases like the coronavirus are going to become more prevalent if we have the continued trend of destroying natural habitats and destroying species, because when there is less biodiversity, a disease, it finds it easier to make its way, jumping from one species to another into a densely populated human spread situation. So one of the campaigns that Creation Justice Ministries is actively pushing during Earth Month is the campaign to conserve 30% of nature globally by 2030. And once again, pre-pandemic, this sounded like a very idealistic campaign to a lot of people. Like, oh, that's don't you think that's a little excessive? Like, where is the entire population going to live? But as we see emergencies of the scale of this pandemic, we now understand that protecting nature is part of protecting ourselves.
And that leads me to the question back to the policymakers. I'm not surprised that you say that lobby congressional visits and such by faith leaders, talking points have fallen on deaf ears for the most part. And I'm really I'd like for you to describe, if you can, what that's like. What does that look like? What does it feel like when you're talking to someone who has the ability to change policy? They hear what you're saying, and how do they respond when it would seem to me that the signs of that drastic action is needed are all around us?
Yep. So until very recently, most of the responses that we got were that we have to be realistic about our current political makeup in Congress and what is actually possible to pass, regardless of the ecological need that our world has. Which to us was not an acceptable response. Now, in more recent years, the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis has formed in the House under the leadership of Kathy Castor from Florida, and we've also had a new environmental justice task force pop up in the House that brings together leadership from the Congressional Black Caucus, the Asia Pacific American Caucus, and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. And those two entities have been really instrumental in pushing forward a policy agenda that is more realistic and attuned to the crisis that we face. And actually, the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis was supposed to roll out their recommendations ahead of Earth Month, and then the pandemic happened. So their big presentation of their big ideas has been delayed. But I am eagerly looking forward to them, because I think we have learned a lot from this pandemic about what it means to legislate and put into place sweeping policies in the face of a crisis. And I hope that the proposals that they're going to come out with will be at the bold scale that we need.
And so you feel really, I mean, as an oversimplification, that really it's just been a lack of will on the part of our policymakers. They just haven't understood or haven't felt like a sweeping change could be possible.
Not politically possible, no.
Right.
So too few of the constituents are pushing their own policymakers for urgent climate action. And for those that are, they're not necessarily influencing the person in power. Perhaps that person has other influencers, such as big money in other industries. So, we're hitting this tipping point. 2020 is the beginning of a decade of urgent climate action. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change scientists have told us that if we do not dramatically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, we will see runaway climate change that will be very catastrophic for all of Earth and will threaten the existence of human life on Earth. So this is an emergency if I ever saw one. It's just moving slower than the coronavirus is moving.
Just to change the subject just ever so slightly, your organization has been involved in protecting lands, especially in the West, that the current policymakers, especially in the White House, have decided it's a better idea to turn those public lands over to oil drilling, to resource mining, things like that. What's happening there? It may be connected to the pandemic, maybe not. Get us up to date on some of those developments that are taking place.
Well, so Winston Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think that people on all sides of this pandemic are taking that kind of advice to heart, including the Trump administration. And they are using this pandemic as an excuse to reduce our reliance on China for uranium, and trying to advance plans to mine for uranium in the crown jewel of our national park system and a sacred place to many tribes, the Grand Canyon. And so that is one of the issues that we have been watching very closely. Another is that the Environmental Protection Agency across the board has reduced its enforcement of environmental laws during the pandemic, and they say it is for personnel and staffing reasons, but it is having some catastrophic effects in environmental justice communities that these laws are not being enforced.
So, in other words, it's not good news. And I'm curious as to, well, do you think that the oil, that the bust in the oil prices is going to have any kind of positive effect? Do you have any hope there?
I can only speculate what effect it's going to have. I do not foresee oil and gas drilling stopping anytime soon. Unfortunately, we have enough existing oil and gas leases set up in the United States so that if they are all fulfilled, we are exactly on track to blow past all of our climate limits that we need to have a livable world. So I think the system change that is necessary, the intervention that is necessary, has to come now. We can't go back to business as usual. And whatever disruption we're seeing in the oil market now probably will not last. Oil in particular, out of all of the fuels, seems to be the most persistent. It's something that I foresee we will need for the longest time. But we are getting a glimpse of what it looks like for those markets to decrease. And I think that's useful information.
Yeah.
As we try to move forward.
Right. Well, there's so much of this. We're seeing such sweeping change, but it is so early to make any kind of big projections. This week we were to we were to have ecumenical advocacy days taking place, and the theme was going to be environmental justice. We were going to be able to get together and do some good work on that topic. Ecumenical Advocacy Days had to be canceled like other big events, but now there's another thing coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, this Monday, April 27th, the Ecumenical Advocacy Days community and our co-sponsoring organizations, of which Creation Justice Ministries and National Council of Churches are among them, we will be having an online event to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, racial justice, the pastoral prayer that we all need at this time for our communities, and our calls to the Congress for the stimulus packages that are coming in the short term and long term that have to do with our infrastructure. So we're calling on Congress to ensure that healthcare assistance and food security and unemployment benefits, help for farm workers are put on the short term agenda, debt relief for countries that need to respond to the economic and health crises before them. And in the longer term, we want to see environmental racism addressed more systemically. We want to have toxic site cleanups and mine reclamation processes that put people back to work and heal the earth. And we want more sustainable infrastructure, particularly in low wealth communities, communities of color, to make sure that we have clean water, renewable energy capacity, clean air, internet broadband, which we're all experiencing is really like a utility, and public transportation to reduce economic disparities and build the sustainable future we need.
And this is going to be how can we find out? How can we, if we're not already connected with EAD and with this virtual event, how can we get connected there?
Check out the Ecumenical Advocacy Days website, advocacydays.org, for more information. And our event will stream to Facebook Live on the 27th in the afternoon at the Ecumenical Advocacy Days Facebook page.
And at the very least, those who were originally registered to take a few days out to be there for the whole conference, at the very least, those folks should show up. But everybody else should too. This is I mean, what I'm hearing from you is that this is a fairly key moment. This is a place. This is a time where we can where some real positive change is possible, but it could also go very much in the other direction as well.
It could. And so being engaged right now is very important. Our commitment to justice cannot be canceled. A lot of events are canceled. We've got to stay on top of our commitment to justice and our civic engagement in this very pivotal time.
Now, we'll kind of wrap things up. You've given us a good glimpse into what's going to happen with the event next week. What are some things that we can be doing now? What are some things that we church people, church leaders, can be doing to seize this moment and use it to push an environmental justice agenda forward for the planet?
Well, it's an election year. And this is a critical time to get out the vote. With this pandemic and the possibility of it having a resurgence in the fall, we don't want to see places where people are kept from voting or have to risk their lives to go and vote. And so we are joining a coalition of faith-based organizations that are asking for vote by mail. Because if we do not have policymakers that have the will to address the climate crisis in this election, we will be out of time, really, to take the actions that we need.
And so getting the vote out is more important than ever.
More important than ever. And for other ongoing opportunities to get involved and take action, always check out the Creation Justice Action Center, creationjustice.org/action.
There have been some great resources there on the website. We've been trying to plug that through the month as we've gotten our newsletter out here and there, but we really appreciate the good resources that are always there on that website. I really appreciate the conversation today, and do you have any kind of final words for us? What can we be doing? What do we need to look out for? What is the urgency of the moment? Go for it.
So our Earth Day Sunday theme for this year is the fierce urgency of now. And as I said, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is telling us that basically our time is up. We need to make the changes now or deal with really catastrophic consequences for many years to come. And so our inspiration this year for our reflection for Earth Day Sunday is the fierce urgency of now. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King from his address at the Riverside Church in opposition to the Vietnam War. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide in the affairs of men does not remain at the flood, it ebbs. We may cry out desperately for time to pause in her passage, but time is deaf to every plea and rushes on. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residue of numerous civilizations are written the pathetic words, too late. And so as we consider the fierce urgency of now, we also know that we're in a kairos moment for God's creation, a time of urgency and a time of divine inbreaking for the Easter joy, and understanding that we are living in gratitude for God's creation and acting rightly.
Chantel, ready, Alonzo, one more time, tell us how we can learn more about your organization and the work that you do.
Yes, check out Creation Justice Ministries at creationjustice.org. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at Creation Justice.
Thank you so much, and I hope you survive in a good state of health and you keep yourself sane with a young person in your home.
Thank you.
If you'd like to see what you can do to continue to bring climate justice before your congregation, there's a comprehensive list of resources available at creationjustice.org. I hope you'll stay connected. It's one of the most critical issues before the ecumenical community and all of the earth as well. We hope these podcasts are beneficial to you. If you have any suggestions, ways we can improve our podcast, new guests we should have on, and so on, please write these suggestions on our Facebook page or tweet us at NCCCUSA. Yes, that's 3 C's. We will do our best to include these as we plan new episodes. We're now live on iHeartRadio as well as Stitcher and iTunes, and you can really help us by leaving a review at the iTunes Store. We also appreciate the occasional share on social media. Please come back and listen next week for another thoughtful, provocative conversation with America's top faith and thought leaders. I'm your host, Reverend Stephen